Good morning, Charles.
All right, good morning. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Okay. Well, I found your other piece, the one behind you.
Yeah,
So it's in the lineup for tomorrow.
okay.
I promised you I would do that. I just want to let you know. Right? I tracked it down.
I need help to figure out what is it. I don't know.
Does it need to be something?
No, it just needs to be nice.
Okay. Do you think it's nice now?
I know. I think so, more or less.
Yeah,
But
I kind of like it actually. In looking at it though, yeah. I don't know. You know, I wouldn't really change anything about it. You know, I would say you've done it really consistently where you've kept the red kind of circles and they seem to be pushing against the boundary of another color area. So,
yeah.
you know, they kind of serve a purpose, you know, to kind of, they're pushing a boundary out. You know, that's kind of how I read it. Okay? That doesn't mean anything really, but it's just, that's kind of how I read it. So, you know, if you could, and again, you know, I wouldn't go back in and change what you've got. You know, I might experiment and do another very similar piece, but try breaking those red spheres, make them different sizes rather than all about the same size, and maybe have some of them break across, you know, that boundary line so that they're not, you know, they're not right up against that black outline, you know, from like the dark blue into the green or into the white or whatever. You know, and just play with that, you know, compositionally and see if that makes any kind of difference. See?
I can try.
Yeah, how big was that piece?
Well, this is small. It's like 11 by 14, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how long did it take you to do the first piece that we're looking at?
Usually like a day or two.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't. I have a problem that I work in my studio is my deck.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's too hot to sit there now.
Right. Yeah.
So I go, I come back, I take it inside and I try to sketch a little bit, but when it comes to all the acrylic, I do it outside the home.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess what I would say is, I don't know why you're going outside to use the acrylic, you know, other than, you know, it might spill, you know, on a desk or a piece of furniture or something like that.
No, it's a matter of space, that's all. We are renting a small apartment, and I rather leave my wife out of it.
Okay. All right.
It's helpful and
yeah. Well, I was going to say, if it's for health reasons, I wouldn't worry too much about.
No. I don't worry about it. Acrylic is good material and it doesn't cause anything.
Okay. So my thought is, okay, again, I would do another piece very similar to this. Again, just make some little tweaks to it. And if you did that, my guess is that it would take you probably half the time that it took you originally. Because originally you probably spent a lot of time looking at it, kind of thinking about it, going back and forth. This, you already have a very set direction to go in, so you can do it very, you know, probably rather quickly.
Okay.
And kind of, you know, and, you know, Casey Bow, you know, I keep referring, you know, to his comment, and I think it's really, really true that, you know, in a lot of cases, you know, what people end up seeing are not the first thing that they did. You know, he may have done that painting 10 or 15 times. See, and it's like you may be seeing the 12th or the 15th attempt at it, you know, before he really got what he wanted. And that doesn't mean, you know, that he started something and he went back in and he changed it. You know, he took it, he completed it, and then he started over again, because it's something about repeating that process that it begins to, you know, help you find kind of more direct kind of shortcuts for how to, you know, approach, you know, doing it, and it speeds up the process. So it's like the 15th time he did something didn't take nearly as long as, say, the first time. And he was able to put the paint down more authoritatively and more spontaneously, which was something that, you know, a lot of painters are trying to get, is to make it, it's like, how do you make it look like it just happened and it was natural and it was easy, rather than, you know, something that looks belabored and struggled with, right? So, yeah, I'll just kind of leave you with that thought. And, you know, that's true with all of us. And, you know, I've kind of done the same thing. It's like when I'm working on something, instead of launching into the final thing, you know, I spend a lot of time doing like small little studies and preliminaries, and that helps me immensely. And I may do 8 or 10, you know, little color studies and versions of something, and just try things, you know, just play with things, you know, change things around a little bit.
I have a problem with it because I always do a single painting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do multiple trial or studies on the same idea.
Yeah.
And this is something I need to start practicing and do more repetitive paintings and try to improve it.
Right. And see,
So
I mean,
definitely a great advice. Thank you very much.
Yeah, like that little piece that you've got behind you, you know, let's say, you know, I don't know how big that was. Let's say it was an 8x10. And so you get about 5 or 6 8x10 canvases, and, you know, you basically draw out the same kind of composition, but you play with colors, and, you know, maybe you make slight tweaks or variations to it. And then you can kind of step back and you can kind of look at what those changes in each one, how they really affected, you know, the composition,
Yeah.
the emotional kind of response, you know, to the, you know, to the actual piece. And it's really interesting sometimes, you know, to see that happen. And, you know, even in doing it just as little thumbnails, you know, you can begin to see, you know, how that really changes your perception of the piece, and how you can begin to focus, you know, on certain parts of it and make choices along the way that you maybe wouldn't have made if you just did it the one time. See?
Yeah.
Ilan always talks about his painting and about the kind of painting that he cannot do, but actually, I love Ilan's painting.
Yeah, well, it's
not the one from yesterday even. I loved it.
Yeah, well,
it's not so.
Don't forget one thing. I usually do collages and stuff like that. I'm too mechanical and I don't do freehand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
He doesn't draw.
I don't know what that means when you say you don't do freehand.
Well, he doesn't draw. He's not. He feels okay. Let's think about how we say this. Okay. He feels like he lacks the ability to draw human figures well. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know what, you know, and he doesn't, you know, he doesn't tend to draw a lot of figures and things. When he does draw,
Mm-hmm.
it tends to be more kind of abstract things, or like that very graphic piece that he did yesterday. And, you know, I guess
Mm-hmm.
the point I would make to him is, you know, I mean, you know, he could take what we're doing in figure drawing, right? And he could draw it in his own style. And that's okay. You know, it doesn't have to be a reproduction of what we're seeing. It's more the response to it. But that's something
Like just like the figure he has behind him right now.
Uh-huh.
You know, I see how one piece of one color folds into the other color and how it, you know, melts into the other color. I think it's just wonderful. I love it.
Yeah.
You know?
I like his work too.
The only problem is that I copied it. That's the only problem. I see something on Google. I fell in love with it. And I'm saying, okay, let's do it.
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Now, question.
Yeah.
Good morning,
I need
everybody.
to fill my time. I like playing with color, but it's not easy for me and it's not natural.
Mhm.
It's not natural universe yet. It's only that
A lot of
natural
things
Charles
in
right
life,
now.
and I won't copy them, but I'll put my own twist on it, changing it.
Yeah.
I like it to be.
Is Elon style what we call it cubic style?
Cubist? No. No, it would be kind of an abstract expressionist.
Abstract.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah, that's what that falls, kind of the categories that would fall into. So let me leave all of you with a thought, okay? There was a very famous artist, right, that said that, you know, the greatest artists are the best at stealing, okay? And
Say that again. The greatest artist is what?
it's at stealing. You know, they would steal from other artists. They would steal ideas. They would see something, right? And that doesn't mean that they would copy what they did, but they liked the idea. See, they liked the idea. They something about that piece, right? You know, the painting, and then they would respond to it. See, and Salvador Dali and Pablo Picasso did that with each other for years. And it was this kind of back and forth ongoing conversation between them. One would do something and get some notoriety for it. The other would steal that idea and redo it in their own way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and put a new twist on it, as Wanda said, right? And then, you know, the press would pick that up, and then the other one would see it and they would respond back. And they kept each other going for years like that. You know, even though they weren't, you know, like directly having a conversation, you know, they would.
I was gonna say that's called a conversation.
Well, it is in a way, and you see that in many ways that's what art is a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a conversation about what your experience is out here in the world. You know, and the things that you see, the things that you respond to, and it's all fair game. You know, it's all fair game. So, you know, the fact that Elon saw something, you know, maybe not exact, okay, but similar to that on Google, and then he did kind of a version of it, Okay, that's perfectly fine. Now, what I'm encouraging him to do, and what I would encourage all of you to do, is don't stop there. You know, don't stop at that first response. Okay, I'm going to do this. So once you do it, then it's like, okay, what else could I do to it? You know, where can I go with this? You know, how can I make this into something that's mine? And I think that's kind of the path that Wanda is going down when she brought that up. Is, you know, how do you begin to respond to something and make it your own? And see, that's the thing about art. It's not that you have to have this mind-blowing, you know, wonderful idea that nobody ever thought of. Because the fact is, it's all been done before. Okay?
Nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
Nothing new under the sun.
Yeah, whatever idea you come up with, it's really not all that original. Okay? Somebody else thought of it and done it. You may not have seen it, but it's out there somewhere. Okay? And so, you know, in the end,
it's the same thing that I said yesterday on the museum show called the Picasso, that you see two artists totally different. One is doing mainly mobiles and some sculptures,
right?
And Picasso does everything. And side by side, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they were both responding to a period of time in history and art, and they were doing it in a very similar way. Okay, because they were actually products of that time, just like any of the art that we're producing now is really a product of the time that we live in right now. You know, and it may be hard to see, you know, until you really kind of step back and look at things. But there's day-to-day life, everything that we hear in the news, everything that we kind of emotionally experience right now, that's all affecting what and how we make art. See? You know, you can't get around all of the things going on in the world, you know, because you're not hermits, you know, I mean, some of us feel kind of like we're hermits or would like to be. But reality is, you know, we're still in touch with the world, and whatever influence is out there, you know, we filter in many ways. So, well.
Charles,
Yes.
as far as copying is concerned in our modern society, as long as you don't try to sell it and the artist doesn't recognize it as a derivative of his, you're not copywriting and infringing on the copyright. But there is a part that says that you cannot even, if the artist recognizes his work, then he might have a case against you.
Yeah.
But most of the time, we don't deal with doing things that artists might see anyway. We just do them for ourselves. So I guess we're safe.
Well, yeah, and you know, there's been a long tradition. We're talking literally thousands of years, where, you know, people who were learning their craft and skill would do what we call master copies. And, you know, and today, like one of the big popular things to do, if you go look on YouTube, you know, there have got to be like, you know, 20 or 30, if not more than several hundred young artists out there who are doing what they call master copies of John Singer Sargent or, you know, Celia Bow or whatever their favorite artist was. And the reason that they're doing those is going through the process of trying to create their own version or their own copy of a piece of artwork, you know, teaches them a little bit about the process and the technique that those artists were using, you know, because, you know, there was a process there, and figuring out what that was and getting a similar effect, you know, can influence you know, your work, you know, as an artist and how you approach things. So
Right, and copyrights don't extend back that far anyway. Anyway, we learn everything. I think about everything by copying or imitating someone else. I learned how to hold my fork from my mother teaching me how to do it. So we learn everything from somebody else. So
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Like I said, there's nothing out there. There's nothing that you or I or anybody alive out here today is going to do that is so uniquely original that nobody's ever done it before. You know, it's just not going to happen. People have had those same feelings and thoughts, and you know, it may not come out looking exactly the way that they depicted it, but you know, the idea isn't necessarily a new thing. So anyway, that being said, how's everybody doing?
I'm doing all right.
All right. Boy.
Yep.
Doing fine.
Yes.
Excellent.
Sounds like you guys need like 2 more cups of coffee.
I'm ready. I'm ready for my second one here.
You're ready for your second cup. Yeah, get a little wake-up call there. Like, whoa, okay. All right. Well, guess what we're going to do today? You know, we're going to talk about a painter who we've already seen a video on, and that's Garin Baker. You know, he was on that Streamline art videos presentation, and he was the guy who painted the ball and then turned it into a head. Remember him? It was only a week ago.
Yeah. I don't remember the name, but I remember the.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I want to do, you know, I wanted to kind of continue on with him because he's an interesting character. Okay. And, you know, as far as, you know, he actually teaches at the Art Students League in New York, which is, you know, a good credential all into itself. But, you know, it goes a little deeper and a little more interesting, you know, than that. You know, he came from a creative family, and he has an interesting story as how he ended up being an artist and why. You know, but you know, beyond that, I wanted to actually show you.
Same as I taught you the old way. I cut and pasted the thing, and then I put it into Zoom, and off we went.
Hey, Richard, how you doing?
By the way,
yeah,
Charles.
Yes.
Today is the last day of the 90s. So now from tomorrow will be 80 and we'll go down, down, down. Maybe one day can go outside and paint.
You're talking about the temperature.
The weather.
Yes. Well, it is going to cool off, but it's going to get wetter again.
Yeah, but one of those dry days maybe.
Okay. All right.
if we keep 10 feet from each other, I don't think we're gonna get nothing from each other's outside.
Yeah. I think we're relatively safe. Yeah, I mean, if people would be interested in doing something like that, we could talk about, you know, meeting out at a park or something like that and doing some, you know, plein air drawing or painting or whatever. I'd be open to that. You know, one of these, you know, for one of these classes. So, at any rate, I wanted to share some of.
Hold your thought. Let me tell you this. My niece talked about going outside. My niece said she took her daughter in yesterday because she had a fever. So she had never been so happy to hear that a child had sinus.
Oh, okay.
That's funny.
Well, that's. I'm glad it's your sinuses and not other things. So, anyway, so I'm going to share some of Garin's work, which we didn't really see a lot of. You know, we saw him paint a ball and a face, but you know, never seen really any of his finished work. So we're going to look at a little bit about that and talk about it. And you know, as I said, you know, he teaches at the Art Students League in New York, and you know, he's a native New Yorker. He grew up there. He's all about New York. You know, big New York fan. You know, but recently he moved out. Well, recently, I'd say, you know, probably around 2010, whatever, he moved out of New York and he built a studio outside of New York City, out, along the Hudson River area. And he'll talk a little bit about that in the video that we'll see. But can everybody see this lady standing there? She's got a black jacket on.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. So, if you look at, this painting, he does a lot of figure paintings. And, one of the things he talks about is almost every day, he'll paint, like a little head study, from life or whatever, because he, and then he'll just kind of rub it out, it's just practice, see? And that's the thing, he views a lot of the art that he makes as here. This is really just practice. I'm just playing. I'm just trying to kind of get my chops down. I'm trying to get, better ways of how to use a brush, color, or things like that. And it's just a matter of a process of figuring stuff out. So he's very analytical in that way, and I like that about, him as a person. And the fact that I think that makes him a very good teacher, because he is very analytical. He kind of breaks down the process and thinks about, if I had to convey this to someone, how would I tell them? How would I tell them what I'm doing? And, the thing I noticed about him in the video that we watched was he was very process oriented, and he was very good at explaining what he was doing as he was doing it. So, and in looking like at this very first piece, you can tell, it's very kind of loosely painted. It's kind of a study. It's not a finished piece of art, but it's very much so. It kind of reminds me of the brushwork of like John Singer Sargent. It's a very direct, very, alla prima feeling, painting. And it's really, lovely because of the light. And the fact that, the light is kind of off of really the focal point, which is the face. The light is actually lower on the figure, kind of the lower part of the face and the chest area. And then the upper part of the head kind of recedes into shadow. And then the lower part of the figure does the same thing. So it's an interesting lighting situation, but it has kind of a nice dramatic effect. Now, one of the things, that in doing a little research on this guy, one of the big influences of his were comic book artists. And, he, when he was really young, he loved comics and, just like those action figures and things like that. And sort of the dynamic lighting, strong light, shadow that comics use. And you can begin to see sort of the influence, of that as well, in his work. Again, look at the lighting, see, he didn't light up the whole face, it's just, this cast shadow that's had, across the contour of this man's face. And then, really, there's just one area, of the face itself that's really developed. The rest of it is just kind of a loose indication. Okay.
What's his name again?
Garin, G-A-R-I-N.
G-A-R-I-N.
Yeah, Baker, B-A-K-E-R.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now Garin does, well, here, I'll kind of just keep on with these. Again, so there's a lot of these sort of alla prima studies and, very quick kind of paintings, gestural paintings. And we'll get into, some of the more finished pieces, like this piece, beautifully done. Now this is a, this is a more finished piece. It's a signed piece. And I think it's called The Man from Senegal. But look at the color in the skin tones and how cool and warm. You see, you know, the shadows overall are cool, and then the light is warm, and the reflected light is also warm. See? And it plays against, you know, that cooler shadow. You know, look at the blues and the violets and things. Really, really nicely done. You know, and the lighting has a nice kind of dramatic effect to it. You know, beautiful brush work. Notice how the brush, you know, he's moving, you know, in the direction of the form. See? You know, he's trying to describe the form, you know, as the brush, you know, kind of moves across the canvas. Here's a figurative piece. You know, again, you know, look at how he uses the brush, you know, to really kind of move in the direction, you know, of the form as he's laying that color in. So it's just not mixing a color and laying it down. It's how he uses the brush to lay that down and kind of sculpt, you know, sculpt that figure, you know, out of the background. Yeah. Slow that up a little bit. Okay. Yeah, he's very, very consistent, you know, with his brush work and, you know, how he's layering and applying the paint. And he's pretty much so, you know, when he's working in studio, he's pretty much on a la prima paint. Okay. And then, you know, he does plein air and life studies, you know, like this is a life study. And one of the things he talked about, which I thought was kind of interesting, is before he starts, you know, doing a figure or a portrait or anything else, you know, he likes to set something up in the background as sort of an abstract paint, you know, to work against. So, you know, he'll take all this wet, very loose color, and rather than coat out his whole canvas, you know, he'll just stain part of it and let it kind of drip and run. And that kind of helps him, you know, begin to compose and, you know, set, in this case, you know, a figure against that background. See? And it informs him, you know, how he's going to, you know, place it on the page. Let's see. Yeah. So there's again, you know, a more finished painting.
Nice painting.
Yeah. And notice how, like, you know, we talk about turning the form, right? So you got the reflected light, you got the shadow, you got the core shadow, you got a mid-tone, you got light, right? See? And so there's at least 5 values, you know, around any part, you know, of that rounded figure. And never less than that. Again, you know, sort of that abstract wash in the background, and then he builds on top of that, and the figure just sort of emerges, you know, out of that. The male figure. And again, you know, if you squint your eye down and really begin to look at the value structure of there, you know, as it, you know, moves around the form. Here's one of his drawings. And, you know, he's actually a very, very good draftsman. Uses a very similar approach, you know, to the way I work, you know, working on a tone paper with white and then some kind of dark medium, you know, to begin to set up a range of value. Now he's a little more lineal than I am. And, you know, he kind of does that post-impressionist thing of, you know, putting an outline a lot of times on, you know, like both sides of the figure, which, you know, I don't exactly buy, but hey, to each our own, right? But, you know, that's a beautiful drawing. I mean, that's as good as any Degas or, you know, Rembrandt. And again, you know, see if we kind of look at how he's using the tool, see, to begin to describe the form as it moves around some of these shapes. And you see, he's not doing any 90-degree cross-hatching. You know, he's laying it down and then he's just slightly changing an angle and coming back in again. You know, so he's always kind of, you know, working with trying to describe the shape of the form that he's drawing. You know, both with the light, you know, as well as with, you know, any of the shadow tones. See, now in the background, you know, he may do kind of, you know, like a pretty consistent straight up and down. But, you know, on the figure itself, you know, he's always working to move around that form and to show you, you know, what the volume, you know, of the figure is.
Hello?
Very, you know, sensitive to value.
I have a bunch of IBM sales methodology and market planning books and stuff.
Okay, we got somebody back there chatting.
Okay.
Nice stuff, right? You know, again, another figure study, male study. Just kind of, you know, very nice, loose, free, you know, but very, very confident, you know, work. You know, I love this painting. This is one of my favorite paintings of his. Just, you know, just the way he caught that little bit of warm light, you know, hitting that side plane to that nose and then the forehead right in there. And then how everything else is generally cooler and more neutral. Because there's really not like a lot of direct light, you know, on her face. It's a softer lighting situation. And then, you know, in contrast to that, you have this situation where the face is pretty much so all in shadow, and it's really just the side plane that's lit up. Okay, and look at the color in there. Beautiful.
This is Garen Baker.
Yeah, Garen Baker, yeah.
It doesn't look like that on the bottom, the signature. Go back another one. The signature on the previous painting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't look like
yeah.
This one. Look at the bottom.
Yeah, I know. I know. That's how, you know, you can't read it. I mean, you know, they're all kind of about the same, but it's all his work. So
It is all his work.
Yep.
I like that show light, how light comes through, you know? So I love this picture.
Oh, this is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, how the light hits her hair and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and again, squint your eye down and look at the separation between what's in light and everything else is in shadow. And just because it's in shadow doesn't mean that it has to be like a really dark value.
Mm-hmm.
See, a lot of that is kind of mid-tones, things like that. But they are darker than everything in the light, and so you have the contrast, you know, between what's in light, what's in shadow. Okay? Yeah, Naomi, here, let's
Yeah.
go. So this is about the only signature that I found that you can probably come close to actually recognizing. But you see, you know, that's his signature, and it's, you know.
What is the first name?
Garin, Garin, and then Baker, Baker. Okay, but you know, it's a very stylized G and a very stylized B and K. It's almost like he leaves off the ER. You know, it's like he does the stroke for the K, and that's the end of it. You know. So anyway, that's his studio work, right? The studio and kind of life painting work, right? Now, I kind of skipped one up here. This
What would you call his style?
You know, just a realist or representational painter. You know, this one is more almost kind of like illustrative. And again, you know, I was talking about him being influenced, you know, early on by a lot of comic book artists. And, you know, comic book artists and artists who would do like these book covers. And this almost looks like a piece of book cover art, you know, to me. You know, very competently painted, really, really nicely done. You know, I'm not, you know, I'm not sliding it in any way. It's just, you know, it just sort of has that feel, you know, you could apply it.
It looks like a poster art.
Yeah. Yeah, like it could be on a book cover or something like that. So it's a little more, you know, this particular piece, which was, I think, one of his older pieces, and early pieces, is a little more illustrative, right? Now it's funny because
some of the romance novels, you know, the romance novels with the books with the woman and the man in front of it, right. And then a specific pose.
Yeah. Now he actually won. This was like one of the first thing that got him noticed. This piece right here, he won an award from Oil Painters of America, and that was back in like 2004, 2005. You know, and it really kind of put him, I wouldn't say it put him on the map, but it got people looking at his work on a regular basis, because it got selected as, you know, being, you know, a winner in a pretty substantial competition. I want you to look, now this is just a detail, this is not the whole painting. But look at the brushwork. You see the direction of the brush strokes? And see, again, you know, he's laying that brushwork down very intentionally because he's trying to describe the direction of these planes. Okay? You know, it's not random. You know, it's like he's literally taking that brush and sculpting out the shape there and kind of describing as he kind of moves through, you know, the different planes of the face, you know, and from light into shadow. You know, he's trying to move in the direction that plane would be, you know, basically moving in. And
I like this one.
Pardon?
So I like this one because it shows the different colors in black skin. I like that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Just beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, he actually paints a lot of black models, you know. You know, he has kind of an affinity for, you know, those skin tones and things. And, you know, and anytime that you paint, you know, somebody with a darker complexion, you know, there's opportunities in there where you see, you know, all this color, you know. And so, you know, that makes, you know, makes it kind of a more exciting challenge, I guess, you know, for, you know, people painting figures and things like that. So that being said, okay, now this is another painting. Okay, now this is more of his more or less studio work, but this is kind of what he's known for, right? And this is what he sells in galleries. The things that we've looked at so far are kind of, you know, like we looked at like 1 or 2 plein air pieces, and most of this was all life studies, okay? You know, in his classes, things like that he would teach. So now we're going to start looking at some of the work that he's got, you know, hanging in galleries, you know, for sale, you know, to the public.
I found it.
Yeah, and he does.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is pretty typical. You know, they're very complicated. You know, they're very complicated. Usually, like street scenes in New York. You know, things like that. You know, a lot of interest. You know, a lot of different focal points. You know, that you could look at in there. There's a lot of information in there.
It seems like they're more linear. Like drawings that are painted or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, you know, I think a lot of it is, you know, it's kind of that combination of being influenced by that, you know, by that comic book style. And they, you know, this feels, again, it's kind of like that plein air piece that he did. It's sort of more like illustrative, you know. Another word for it might be called narrative. But, you know, where Bo Bartlett's work is really kind of narrative, there's kind of an underlying message. A lot of these are, you know, more like slice of life, you know, this is what I saw at the moment, right? Like these two workers. Now, you know, I mean, you take a relatively mundane subject, you know, like two guys out there, you know, working, you know, and he's got this big saw and he's cutting this big, you know, steel, you know, pipe, you know, and you turn it into, you know, a painting. And
how much does he get for these paintings?
Oh, that's a whole nother subject. Yeah, like you know, his range is like from like about $8,000 to $10,000 to like 40 and 50,000.
They're large paintings?
No, not that big, really. Not that big. You know, I mean, they're not small. They're probably like, you know, 24-36.
Okay.
You know, something like that. Kind of in that range. But, you know, just taking, you know, forget the subject. Just look at the contrast and value of the color and the way that he used the paint, you know, and it's just beautifully done. Let's see. Yeah, a landscape. Now, there's a story behind this painting. And we're going to actually watch a video of which he will be at this location. And this is along the Hudson River. It's something point. Evidently, you know, this is a very popular fishing spot, you know, for a group of guys who've gone out there for many, many years, and they go out there, you know, for a couple of months out of the year when the striped bass are running and catch striped bass. But, you know, this is basically, if you look at this painting and you think about Thomas Moran and a lot of the Hudson School painters, this is the Hudson River. And look at the landscape. And it's so much like Moran's and all of those Hudson School, you know, painters, you know, landscapes, you know, of the river and the river valley and stuff. But there's, you know, I mean, with the picnic table and the little trash can in the 55-gallon drum trash can, and it looks like a grill or something over there.
Yeah, small grill.
Yeah, it's like, it tells you this isn't a Thomas Moran painting. You know, this is a contemporary painting, you know, of the Hudson River. And so it makes it within the 20th, 21st century and puts it in context, which is kind of an interesting thing, really, when you get right down to it. Yeah. Okay, not, you know, not your typical composition, you know, very horizontal, very elongated, but very fitting to the subject. You know, you're looking at the ocean horizon line, and look at the transition of color, you know, from the right side where it's very warm into this kind of cool red, right? And then, Naomi, I'll humor you. Let's blow his signature up again. Well, and you know, look how he handled the wave and the light coming through the wave. So very nicely done. But
it's not as exciting as his city paintings.
no, no. But you see, you know, there he goes again. You know, I mean, you can barely.
It's hard to read.
Yeah, you can barely tell what that is.
Yeah, you could barely see it. Yeah, I see. He's doing it very artistic.
Yeah, he is. You know, it's kind
Doesn't
of like,
look like the same painter that did the people in the city.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it is though. Okay. Here's another, you know, very elongated, you know, landscape. You know, obviously, you know, New York. That's the Hudson River Bridge, I believe. The one in the foreground. I can't remember what the other one's called. Maybe the one back here. Yeah, I think this is the Hudson River Bridge, and this is the Brooklyn Bridge back here.
Yeah, one is Brooklyn, the other one might be the Washington Bridge.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a New York aficionado. I've been there a couple of times, but you know, another Hudson River scene. You know, obviously winter. You know, and again, you know, treated, you know, very honestly. You know, as you know, he's not trying to give you this idyllic representation of the Hudson River. You know, he's giving you kind of a true. This is what the Hudson River is today. You know, the kind of the 21st century. This is the reality, the time that we live in. So, and in the end, you know, that's what will be important about these paintings is that they caught a particular place at a particular time, and he painted it in a very timely way. So it becomes, you know, in a way, kind of documentary. You know, a class at the Art Students League, you know, with all the people, you know, doing a figure study. And again, you know, beautifully painted. You know, look at how he, you know, handled the folds and the forms, you know, in the jacket and the clothing. You know, same thing with the woman over here, her sleeve. Let me kind of reduce this. Yeah. See the light, you know, going down her back and down the back side of her arm here. You know, this guy, you know, and the light is, you know, back here on his jawline and neck, you know, back behind his ear. Really lovely, you know, just use of light.
I see they're keeping the model room.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
The heater is behind the model.
Yeah, yeah. You got to keep the model warm. You can't have her freezing up there. You know, him or her, whichever. Okay. This I thought was kind of interesting because actually, see this guy with the red hair? I know him. I know. I literally know him. You know, his name is David, and he went to New York to study painting. You know, and he studies at the Art Students League and, you know, a couple of other different places in New York. But David used to paint with Shane McDonald, him and his sister, Anna. And Anna is still here. She's a well, she works as a school teacher, but very talented artist. They both are. And David went up to New York, to go, to practice. And David's doing very well right now, painting portraits and things like that. But this is actually David, in one of the classes, painting a model. And so when I look, I know exactly who that guy is. So it's kind of funny. It's kind of a small world. Here's another one of his, kind of like his street scenes. This is a gallery painting. It's a fisherman, he's sitting there on the boat, at the wheelhouse. This is very appropriate, You got a woman, kind of a worker. She's got her waders on and her camouflage pants. She's out there working with the guys. It's down here at the dock. Look at all the fish, in the bin. The guy on the forklift, wonderful character, just a wonderful character these guys faces. So, and the thing is, it's not, he's not putting a lot of detail in any of these faces and things. But it's just, just getting the lights and the darks, just in the right place. And it sort of describes, who they are.
Looks like her arm has more detail than anything.
Yeah. Well, she's the focal point, of the whole thing. Yeah, it's this area right in here. Her hair and that arm and the gloves. And you see, he basically almost obliterates the face. It's all in shadow and in profile. See, all the light is, to the back of her. And it's not about who she is. It's kind of who she represents and what she's doing and her place, in the world, I mean, she's a working woman, she's not a secretary or, filling any of those traditional roles for women. She's out there working with the guys, on the docks.
That's what I need, the working woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
He hates a working woman?
No. He said that's what he needs. Yeah.
That's the world today.
Yeah. So, this is another painting that he got quite a bit of notoriety for. And I mean, quite frankly, I'm glad he painted that. I have no desire to do anything like that. It's just like, here's this.
This is hard to do.
Well, it's just like way too busy, way too much.
Yeah,
so,
all of people face it hard to do. This is a difficult job to do.
Yeah, but he handled
it like a photograph.
Kind of, it's again, it's kind of a slice of life, sort of moment. It's not really narrative. Okay, so and he's got other studio paintings we'll go through as well, but that's
a lot of faces.
Pardon?
That's a lot of faces.
Oh yeah, well, it's a lot of figures.
That's a lot of faces.
Yeah, it's nothing. I mean, there's got to be 100 figures there, easily. Okay, but now one of the things that I was really impressed with this guy was he does a lot of public art. And when I say public art, I mean we're talking big murals. And we're talking big murals. This is a small mural, okay? But
a small one?
Yeah, hang on. Okay, because, so there's this one. Now, these are probably about the same size, but look, and this is in a high school in New York. And it's like, there's a mural on each floor.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. But now, and again, this is not like one of the bigger ones. It's the side of a building. Okay. You know?
Wow, that is awesome. I
Yeah,
love it.
beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. And again, his approach and his style here is very kind of illustrative. You know, this is what an illustrator would call a composite illustration. You know, you're taking, you know, this element of the tree and you're kind of transitioning it into this group, you know, of people up here. And then you've got, you know, the Capitol building back there. And then down here, you've got a street scene, you know, from the park, you know, into the neighborhood, right? And over here, you've got another element, of course, you know, the ribbon.
This is a problem with that mural. If
Pardon?
one day the building get demolished, that thing get lost.
Yeah. Well,
let's hope not.
Well, okay. You know, let's talk about, you know, the function of public art.
Mm-hmm.
You know, public art is not always meant to last forever. You know, reality is this is an image that's on the exterior of a building. So it's exposed to elements of weather. Like you said, you know, the building could get damaged. It could, you know, fall into disrepair. It could fall apart. You lose the art. Okay. But the art on the building served a purpose at the time. See, it was a reflection of the place, the community that it was in.
Charles, I have a question.
Yeah.
Where do you begin on something such a large mural as this? Where do you begin on this type of scene?
Not on the wall. No, you do well, and you know, we'll have to talk about the public art process. Okay, because I've done a couple of public art pieces, and there's a long process to.
You do it on paper first?
Yeah.
How long do you think it took him to do that?
Probably about 3 to 5 years total.
Oh my God.
Now that's not 3 years? No, wait, that's not 3 to 5 years painting on the side of the building. That's from the initial, you've got to make sort of a bid, you know, to a committee. You know, they've got what they call an RFQ, or request for, you know, qualifications and stuff like that. So you send in a portfolio, they look at your work, they may pick like 5 or 10 people and go, okay, show us your idea of what you would do here. So then you go away, and of course, at that stage, they're paying you a stipend, right? They're not paying you to do the mural. They're paying you to show them what your idea would be. And it's usually not a huge fee. It's maybe $400 or $500, you know, to do.
So with all the formalities taken over and done, if you were going to do this mural yourself, where would you begin?
Well, after you get everything approved by the committee, they pretty much already know what the image is going to be, you know, and the hard part of doing a public piece of art is once you have that image there, you're committed. You can't change it. And I mean, you can't change it. You can't take artistic liberty. It's like, that's what they approved. That's what goes on that wall. Okay.
How much does he get for this?
He probably got about, you know, $30,000, $40,000 for it.
It's beautiful.
You know, I would have to have my glasses on because I can see me trying to walk into that park.
Ah, okay.
I got to.
Yeah. Well, see, you know, good job, right? Yeah. And you know, this is one of the studio paintings.
That's beautiful.
Or actually, no, this was a mural as well. Yeah, this was for the firefighters. Yeah. This was a mural. It was on the inside of the building, you know, and it had something to do with the shipbuilders, steel workers, something like that. And actually, here it is. Actually, it's on the exterior. See? It's on the side of a pretty good sized building. You know, that's at least 2.5 stories.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Where is that?
It's in New York.
Who pays for the scaffolding?
Oh, wait a minute. No, it's not. This one is in the Netherlands. Like, you know, yeah. He actually doesn't do work just in New York. I mean, he's been hired to do murals, you know, all over the place.
Who pays for the scaffolding and all that? Does that come out of the artist?
Well, that comes out of. Well, okay. They pay. They do it different ways. A lot of times, though, there's a budget, a set budget, and basically they say, okay, you got $40,000 to do this project. So that's, you know, and sometimes the city or the municipality or whoever is hiring for the public art piece will provide some materials and support. A lot of times, though, you have to hire all the engineers and experts and everybody else that you need, you know, and pay them, you know, to get the piece done. So it varies, you know. Here's the inside of that high school building. I never went to a high school like that, you know.
Me too.
Yeah, yeah. This is actually, you know, one of the high schools, you know, in Washington, D.C. You know, and talking about people, look at all the people in the crowd. There are people, there's nothing but
their faces.
Huh?
But their faces are not painted. On the other one, he painted all those faces.
Yeah, you know.
I think he painted the people first, and then the band on top.
Yeah.
My guess would actually be the opposite. Okay.
The opposite?
Yeah, he painted the band, and then as he painted the crowd, he cleaned up and sharpened the edge, you know, on the foreground. That'd be my guess.
Oh.
Okay.
Charles.
Yeah.
You remember we were going over some type of artwork where they took a photograph and they, some type of way, what's it called, Trump or something, where they...
Oh, Trump oil.
Yes, this reminds me of that a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, Trump oil, all that means is to fool the eye. That's literally.
Say that again?
Trump oil.
How do you spell that?
Oh, God.
Trump?
It's French. Trump oil.
Trump oil?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a French phrase, and it just means to fool the eye.
I think it's Trompe and then OIL, I think.
Yeah, I believe so.
Trompe, I think.
There's an L apostrophe in there.
No,
it's an OIL at the end.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's really two.
Trompe. Trump.
And then LOIL, I think.
So which one was to fool the eye? Which one are you talking about?
Oh, any of these really, but I mean.
Any of them?
The band, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you know,
whenever you give something depth, you're actually fooling the eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you give something depth, well, you're really looking at a flat painting.
You could apply that term in many cases to any kind of representational thing. But the fact is, Trump oil was a particular art movement in around about started actually in about the 14th, 15th century, and you know through about the 18th century, and it mainly applies to still life. Okay. That's usually how it's used. Yeah, there's that mural at the high school, you know, the interior. So evidently, you know, something about the performing arts going on there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, another of these, you know, kind of guys out working. Building roads, you know. That'd be a good, you know, illustration for Biden's, you know, infrastructure plan. So, you know.
I'll take a picture and send it.
Yeah. You know. Yeah, no big deal, you know, just the whole side of a building. Right. It's kind of. So anyway, I guess kind of have you guys had enough? You know, can you seen everything?
I think so.
Yeah. So I think you got a pretty good idea of, you know, what he's all about and the kind of work that he does. And, you know, he does some beautiful stuff, you know.
Oh, that look like like you moved that one back. I think we've seen that picture before.
Mm-hmm.
Look like you moved it back. Yeah.
Moved it back.
How old is he now?
I'm sorry, what?
How old is he?
Oh, he's probably in his 50s. Yeah, I would say he's probably 50s now. Yeah. He's younger than us, so. But yeah, you know, he's kind of, I guess you would. It's hard to say. You know, you can't really say for an artist that, you know, when they get into their 50s and 60s that they're in their later career. Because, you know, most artists work until, you know, they fall over at the easel. You know, that's their later career. You know, when they pass away at the easel, you know, they're done. You know, because artists kind of keep working their whole life. You know, it's not a career that you retire from, I guess. That's what I'm saying. So anyway.
Good life to me.
Pardon?
Keep doing what you're doing until you die.
Hey, if you love the process, if you're learning, if it stimulates you and keeps you alive, you know, and engaged in life, absolutely. You know? Okay. Anyway.
It's interesting. I worked with a lady years ago. She lived in Stone Mountain, Ani Kramer, and she loved to do all kinds of people in her paintings. I mean, they were so busy with folks and faces, and she liked to do the like the old English scenes, pub scenes, and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
She's a delightful lady.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there's always opportunities out there for artists to do sort of narrative sort of works like that. Yeah. There's a need for stuff out there. You know, there's a market, I should say. Okay, so anyway, how are we doing time-wise? We probably went way, way long. We did. So I had 2 videos to show, but I'm only gonna show the one. And this is about Garen Baker again. And this is actually off of his website. And it's called Ebb and Flow, and it's really about that Hudson River painting. But the thing I want you to get out of this is kind of, I want you to kind of listen to how he is kind of connected to people, you know, through the fact that he makes art, okay? And that, you know, how his experiences, you know, with meeting this group of guys out there, you know, really kind of inspired this whole series of paintings that he did. And so it's an interesting video. I think you'll find it interesting, you know, really fascinating. But let's jump into that before we get too late in the day. And this was on TED Talk.
When I was a kid, I used to go fishing. My father was an avid striper fisherman. And he used to take me out, you know, wake me up at 4 o'clock in the morning and drag me out of, you know, New York City and take me to Long Island, Jersey Shore, Staten Island. We just fish for stripers. One of the reasons I moved up here from the city was obviously to be in the Hudson River and to get a big studio space. And I would just go out by the Hudson just to paint. It's such an amazing place to paint. And one day I was out there painting and I saw these guys fishing. And I was, you know, finishing up painting. And I walked over there and I asked them, hey, what are you guys fishing for? They kind of looked at me strange. And they said striped bass. I went home, I called my dad and I said, you really catch stripes on the Hudson River? He's like, really? So the next day he came up and he met them and we started hanging out. And subsequent to that, I mean, for the last, I don't know, 10 or 12 years, every spring, I've been going, you know, to the Plum Point, you know, this spot, and fishing with this group of guys and gals. And for 5 weeks in the spring, from about end of April to last of May or first week of June, there's a huge sort of spawning run for the striped bass. And the more and more I've gotten involved in it, the more and more I've looked into sort of the history of it and what the river really means to you know, this area, you know, to generations of humanity that's basically lived this river, along these shores. The Hudson continues to offer up its bounty on many different levels. There's like a spiritual connection on some level that I have yet to try and figure out why this group of mostly men and some women sort of leave their daily lives for a period of 5 or 6 weeks. You know, they leave all of that in the parking lot, they walk down to the river's edge, and they sort of commune with the river in a very deep, kind of human way. And they fish, and they catch some really cool fish, but mostly it's to connect with each other on a really human, kind of communal way that I think goes back millennia, goes back to generations and generations, as long as there have been humans in this area. You know, Newburgh is, I guess, has been in a sort of a transition for what, 35 years now. And it has to do with people like of all races and all economic backgrounds, shedding all of that stuff about us and them, you know, those people, you know, just shedding all of that and coming together for a singular purpose, you know? And whether it's fishing on the Hudson or whatever the case may be, there's something intrinsically human and spiritual about this simple activity that is a great lesson. You know, you'll have like stockbroker, correction officer, ex-con, you know, retired guy. You'll have people from all different, they come from all different places, you know, race-wise, economic-wise, cultural-wise, and they all get along incredibly well. I don't know what that is, but it's, for me, it's a great lesson in, for some reason, I'd like to take like some people that have a lot of that stuff that they bring to the table, fear, you know, and trepidation about people, different people, and bring them down there and have them hang out for an afternoon and say, what's the problem? You know, we all joke and we all mess around and we all say this and that, but it's not much deeper than us all just being human with each other, you know? Beyond, you know, catching great fish and being in an amazing place like, you know, like the Hudson River at Plum Point, and what that means to me as an artist, just going and painting there. It really says a lot, or is a great lesson about what, you know, Newburgh could learn. If you are willing to shed some of that fear and meet each other as humans on a human level, there's lots of work to be done, you know? And it's, I think, all of that other stuff that gets in the way of people just rolling up their sleeves and coming up with new ideas and figuring out how to work together to get stuff done.
What'd you guys think about that?
Nice video.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice fish.
Yeah.
Nice tattoo.
Those Sharpers.
Wow.
Huge.
Love that. More?
Uh-oh.
Huge. Wow. Perfect. Gorgeous.
Sorry about that.
Mine was getting a groove on.
I know. We're like, you're getting kind of jazzy back there, you know? What's going on? So, anyway. All right. So now you know a little bit about Garen Baker, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So, what do you think of his work? Any thoughts about any of that stuff? Things you like, things you don't like?
I like this stuff. I liked his drawings, the coloration of it, the motion of it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah. Are you talking about his
Especially
drawings
the
or
city
his paintings?
scenes. His paintings, especially the city scenes. I like
Right.
them.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I kind of noticed about him, there's kind of a consistent flow through his work. I mean, you kind of see his hand in everything that he does. But there, you know, his public art pieces versus his life studies versus his gallery work all have a very different feel to me. You know, they're kind of the same, but they're separate. You know. And I don't see that often in a lot of artists. It's like a lot of their sort of like studies and things like that. It kind of carries over into their, you know, their more, I don't want to say commercial work, but you know, work that's kind of painted for galleries. You know, it's not that big of a leap. In his particular case, his life studies are very different feeling than his studio paintings. His studio paintings feel more illustrative to me, or when I say studio painting, I mean, you know, stuff really done for galleries, you know, feel more illustrative almost. And his stuff, you know, his studies in his life, to me, feel more authentic, you know, just kind of more like, yeah, you know, I kind of relate to the fact that, you know, he was sitting there and he was working and was painting that. Where, you know, his like I said, his gallery work, you know, it's a little too worked out. It's a little too refined. You know, it's almost kind of slick and commercial. You know, and then the same thing is true, and I understand, you know, in the market that you know he's working in, you know, for public art, you know, how that would be, you know, very much so, you know, required to be that way. But to me, you know, they're very distinct from each other.
I guess he's like, he does work for them and he does work for himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that clearly shows, you know, and it's like, you know, you can kind of see when an artist is doing something because they're excited by it and they love it. And then you see it because it's like, you know, it's good, competent work. There's nothing wrong with what he's doing in any other work, but it doesn't have, I guess to me, it just doesn't have the emotional connection.
No emotional connection?
It doesn't have the same emotional connection. No.
Oh, you're saying what he has for the audience compared to what he had for his own personal use.
Right. Yeah.
I think we're all like that, aren't we?
Pardon?
I think we're all like that in some way or the other, you know, in what we paint and draw and different things. Some people like to do the landscaping and do it very well. Yeah. And then other people will do still life and do it perfectly, you know. So I guess we got all different ways of expressing our painting.
Yeah. Though I would say that, you know, in just kind of thinking about a couple of landscape painters that I really admire. They do landscape. They're painting it for a gallery, but they're still, you kind of get this sense that they're connected to the landscape in the painting. You know, you still see them there. You know, they're in that work. And, you know, with a lot of his gallery work, I don't see that. You know, I don't see him there. Again, you know, I see it kind of, it's technically really well done, but it's not like his heart is really in that, you know. The murals, you know, beautifully done murals, you know, and everything is really, really nicely. But again, I don't see him in there as an artist. I don't see the, you know, I don't really know how to describe it other than, you know, it's that emotional connection, you know, to the work. You know, if I look at like, okay, which is, if I look at like Bo Bartlett's work, okay. Now Bo is not doing murals and, you know, and he's not even really selling in galleries actually, you know. I mean, the poor guy, well, poor guy. Yeah, everything he'll ever draw, paint, and everything else, there's some museum who's already got their fingers on it for the rest of his life. So really, he's only kind of working for one market. But, you know, it's like everything he does, I see him in there. And it doesn't matter whether it's a drawing or whether it's a figure study or a painting or whether it's a finished piece, you know, that will go to a museum. It's him, you know, and it just kind of feels like him all the way through. And I don't know, with Garen Baker, I don't get that sense. You know, again, it's like, I guess, you know, for me, I kind of see him in, like I said, those more immediate kind of studies and things like that. You know, it just seems like he's connected to it. It's got a different feeling to it. So that's just me.
Do you think that has something to do with the region that he paints in? Like he paints, you know, Manhattan, New York, that can be concrete city and cold. Do you think that that's somewhat why it comes through that way?
No, I don't. Because, okay. I mean, there are other artists like, okay, take, for example, Bert Silverman. Okay?
Uh-huh.
You know, Bert does a lot of the same things. Dan Green did a lot of the same things. But when they did it, you know, I mean, again, it was them all the way through. I mean, it didn't matter whether they were doing a street scene, city scene, you know, and those were done with the intent of putting them in a gallery and selling them.
Okay.
But you saw Bert in those paintings. You know, you saw Dan Green in those paintings. You know.
So there's a certain signature.
Yeah.
That's from the heart that you're seeing.
Yeah, it's a connection that goes all the way through all the work that he does. See?
Okay.
You know, and with Garen, I'm not so sure. I could be wrong, and that's just my observation. You know, and I'm not saying that anything is wrong with the work or that, you know, it's bad work and this is good work. No, I mean, he does phenomenal work, whatever he does, you know. But it just, again, there's it's kind of intangible, but, you know, there's something about, you know, kind of the emotional connection to it, you know, that I don't get, you know, in the more commercial type work that he does. So, and, you know, I mean, I've been there, done that. I know what that's about. You know, I used to be an illustrator, and, you know, did I feel emotionally connected to a lot of those illustrations that I did? Very rarely, you know, because they had been so, you know, they had gone through such a long process, you know, that it's like most of the joy and the excitement had been milked out of them long ago. You know, it's just like,
right.
You just want to get it done, you know, and get it out the door. So anyway, so, you know, maybe I'm just projecting my own experience. I don't know. You know, it could be possible. Anybody else?
No.
Richard, you've been very silent. Let's hear from you.
I think it's real good workmanship. I enjoy looking at it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Anything in particular you really like?
I like the street scenes and city scenes and that kind of stuff. I like the fishing scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought the ones that he did at Plum Point, you know, the whole series, you know, along the Hudson River were really, really nicely done. You know? I mean, those I kind of felt like he was really connected to. And then the ones, and we didn't see it, you know, in the lineup. I couldn't find the paintings that he showed in that video anywhere. I couldn't find them online or anything like that. But I would really like to see like the finished painting of all the guys fishing, because, you know, what we saw in the video, I would say that was kind of more like his life studies. You know, there was a connection there in that piece, you know, that I really did see. But yeah, I mean, technically, you know, he's an amazing painter. You know, he really is. You know, got great technique, great use of color, really understands, you know, how to turn form, you know, all of those things that make, you know, a really good, you know, artist. You know, he has all those tools, you know, and he uses them well. So. Anybody else?
No, I gotta go.
We gotta go? Well, it's only 11:26, but okay. You're gonna go get lunch?
No, I have to do something. I eat lunch at 2.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, you're gonna stop by and pick me up.
What else is coming?
What else is coming?
Coming in your plan for today.
Oh, for today. I'm done. You know, I'm done with my plans for you today. Okay.
Oh, good.
I have
We'll see you
presented.
tomorrow at 2 p.m.
Yeah, I have presented all the information I'm going to present to you today. Yes, we will see you at 2 in the morning. Well, 2 tomorrow. I do have your drawings in the queue. Okay. I've got several people's work. I haven't seen anything from like Richard or Veronica, or I've got some of Wanda's work. Who else? Eloise. Yeah, I don't have anything in the lineup for Eloise.
Veronica, get busy, Veronica.
It's from Friday. You didn't get those? I sent in sketches from Friday.
Yeah, we talked. Well, yeah. Actually, I'm glad you reminded me, because I need to move those. We looked at them yesterday, and I need to move them over to Thursday so I can talk to you about them. Okay. So that's true.
All right.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Okay. Well, let me just close out by saying thank you for all coming. Okay. And hanging out here. You know, I hope
Thank you very much.
I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday. And guess what? We're on the hillside, man. You know, we're over the top. It's down toward the weekend at that point. Okay? And oh, by the way, this weekend is a holiday, right?
Yeah, it is.
No.
Next weekend.
Next weekend? Okay. I'm a little early. All right. I stand corrected. I'm a little early. Okay. Yeah, I know Memorial Day is
coming. Oh, you're thinking about Labor Day?
Or Labor Day. Okay. Someday.
I mean, but you can start celebrating now. That's okay.
Hey, you guys want to show up Monday with party hats?
Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Yes. Yes. You know, that and a martini. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
good.
There you go. All right. So anyway, we will see you all tomorrow at about 2 o'clock. Okay. If you have stuff, send it to me. Okay. And we will hopefully see each other again. Eloise, before you go away, how was
Yes.
your class yesterday?
Oh, good. It was great. I always enjoy the class.
Yeah. Now that's with Ernest, isn't it? Ernest Varner?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Did you say hello to him? I sent you back a text.
I had left by the time I got your message.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'll tell him next time.
Yeah, maybe next week.
What class is that, Eloise? What class is that?
It's a painting class I take at Kennesaw.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now,
That's why you're so
now
good.
is he teaching? It's a portrait class, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because
Yeah,
that's
I've been for
Bob
years.
and I, Bob and I are both in the class. We've been in there for a long time.
yeah. I think Bernice brought that up yesterday that the two of you were hanging out together, and you know, I said, you know, we're going to have to start a rumor.
Oh no.
You know.
Well, I won't tell me what she said to me yesterday.
Oh no, don't.
I've moved from the morning class to the afternoon class because the morning class was really full, a lot of people.
Uh-huh.
And she commented about parts of
No,
my
that's X-rated. X-rated.
getting back to the morning class.
I
So
All right. Okay. Yeah. See, we could start a rumor. There you go. All
We
right.
get the idea.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, thank you all for coming. We'll see you guys at 2. Stay safe.
Okay.
Have fun. Do some
Thank
good work. All right.
Did you say at 2?
At 2.
He means tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay.
Yeah, 2 o'clock tomorrow.
Tomorrow, all right.
Yeah, not 2 this afternoon.
Okay. I'll be the only one.
Unless you just want to.
Yeah, well, she might be a little lonely.
Yeah, a little lonely, yep. Okay, guys, see you all tomorrow then.
All right.
Thanks,
See you all for
Charles.
coming.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.